Our next speaker is pretty well known to, I think, most of you. Many of you will have seen his videos on YouTube or on the TED.com website. And it's Hans Rosling. He's a professor of global health at the Karolinska Institute in Stockholm. And he is here to talk with us a bit, just to sort of review a bit about some of the work that he's done that would be relevant, I think, to our group via Gapminder and the Trendaliser software, which was acquired by Google back in 2007. We've got it in a slightly different, slightly more experimental format, so we're hopeful that it works. Please, if we can put some good karma and good vibes towards the screen and towards Stockholm, that would be great. Paul, whenever you're ready, if you would like to bring Hans on too. There he is. Hello, Hans.
Hi. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Well, the very fact that a professor from a Department of Public Health speaks at the digital conference, is a matter of confusion, isn't it? I don't know whether it tells perhaps mainly that content is very important. But my first message must be that if anyone there in the room can invent a secure system for giving lectures over the internet, then, you can earn a lot of money, because it's just two skilled technical persons who have made this possible today. It really doesn't exist any stable way of doing this, where you both can talk and you can point on your animated graphics. But let's have a try. Now, what I'm showing you here in the graph is our most basic graph, where we show on the horizontal axis the number of children per woman, and on the vertical the length of life in life expectancy. And this is where we've had the breakthrough, and I would like to contemplate a little about why. We show each country here as being a bubble, and this is 1950. And what you clearly show is that there's one group of countries here with long life and small family, and another one down there with large families and shorter lives. We used to call them developing countries and Western world. And this whole project started by my frustration that the students have a Tintin-based worldview. The ideas about the real world was about 40 years old. Because when I click play here, you can see how big, mighty China and India here is getting healthier and healthier, and the Latin American countries, the yellow ones, they're getting smaller families, the green one is the Arabic countries. And I use this technique of being a sportcaster and telling how fast China moves over here, and that sort of opened the mind of people, and they realized that this gradual change was never communicated by the news media, and that the world today is completely different than it was before, and we end up more or less here at present. Now, why was this so successful? It's probably because animation is the right way of showing change over time. We learned in school to put time on the x-axis, but there's very few who convert that into real understanding in their brain. And also the possibility, this software allowed us to go back here, to 1950, and we pick United Kingdom there, having a long life and just 2 kids per woman. And then we take, Catholic Brazil down there, like a developing country, and we can take away all the others. And we can compare where is Brazil today compared to United Kingdom. And very few are aware that Brazil today have the same length of life and family size as United Kingdom had at Beatle time about 1970. So it's sort of this change in the world has been missed, and that was my great chance. When there is an enormous gap, the big gap between knowledge and fact, then there's a big chance of providing information. Now, how was this possible? Was possible by a very sharp division of labor. We started this, me, my son, and his wife, and they run the serious department of Gapminder. They sat in the closet and wrote code for 7 years, whereas I went around with a roadshow and took all the credits. And that's really why it worked. And I would like to show some other examples of what we did and tell you the background of it. This is a presentation which is not the Trendaliser software. It's a more hard-coded data into a Flash package where we really work to make the animation. We try to show the distribution of income in the world. You can see here dollar per day. This guy in the middle, he earns $10 per day. Now, how would we show a graph for people so they would grasp? And we really worked with this. And in the end, we showed it like this. We let human beings fall down, and we let all the human population fall down. And I hope that the animation is reasonable now over in the net. Just to find out how to portray a non-gender specific person and to let them land so it didn't look as we throw them out took a long time. But this turned out to be quite understandable of seeing the income distribution of the world with a sort of hump here from the colonial time. And then how to show the money, where the money is. Now this is a 100% of the daily income. And just to make that coin, I remember my son told me it took him about 8 hours work in Flash to make it a little glimmering like that. But to find out that we should use a coin in this way, that was about 2 weeks iteration. So what turned out to be so fruitful for us was that we were a small team. One was the content guy, it was sort of me. And one was the design director, and that was my son's wife, Anna. And she had really good user eye, you know. And my son was sort of half design, and then he wrote the code. But everything was due to Macromedia and Flash. This is high-level programming. And he was helped by not knowing anything about C++. So we surfed on the wave of Macromedia and then Adobe products. And then how to show the split of this, you know. You could split it like this. This is freehand, you know, design technology. What is most challenging is to design animation. We still use the term infovis because the market for producing visualization is still in the printed media. And what is used with animation on the web, and especially on TV, look at BBC, they use animation only for branding. But how do you use it for information? Here we sort of wanted to show the different continents in income distribution. Africa there, and then we had to stack the other income distributions on top of it and look on how we had to design it, how it was falling down, you know, and that smooth movement in the end. Each of these graphs is about, what we are showing is about the 20th final iteration. And the most important was between the content, design, and programming, you must have an iteration loop, which is 24 hours. If you try to do it linearly, there's someone who have the content, they give it to a designer, who then give it to a programmer. Then it takes about 3 to 4 weeks, and then everyone fights each other afterwards because it didn't turn out as it was intended. I think the iteration loop is extremely important to have here. And you have small quarrels every day instead of big fight after 3 weeks or 3 months. You know, and here we continued dropping them down like this. And then we had the whole world, and we could bring it back to 1970, and then we could run it forward and the change over time. So the only basic thing about this, use high-level language, compose a group together which can do it. The problem is that no generic product comes out of this. In fact, this was done 2005 with the United Nations, and this summer we decided to redo it. And I asked my son Ola, who now is working at Google, can't you open that exe file and look in the FLA? You know, and he just couldn't find his way around in the FLA any longer. So it's much more demanding to make a reusable Flash package than to do it for once. It's amazingly stable, even with rock and roll programming and a hard-coded data set. Just another example here, where we showed each continent here as a bubble: Sub-Saharan Africa, India, East Asia, Arab state, and Central and Eastern Europe, Latin America, and the OECD countries, so famous so-called Western countries. And here is GDP per capita, and here is child survival, 99% of kids surviving, 70%. Healthy up, sick down, poor to the left, rich to the right. Now, what we wanted to show here was the difference within countries. And it turned out, but even here, morphing and animation was very successful. So showing the difference within Sub-Saharan Africa, we hatch it like an egg, and then the country bubbles come out, and they land beautifully. And to find out that we needed to have that sort of rubber band. You can see there you hatch it, you have the rubber band, and it allows the user to follow and to understand how it is. And it's extremely important that animation lands in a beautiful way. We found out often when you do infographics, you have one person who make the content and then a designer who make nice things around it, because the content guy, the statistical geeks like me, they do it ugly, so it must be beautified, but then it becomes beautiful around, instead of making the information carrying icons beautiful. This is very important. We developed soon the principle of not allowing any pixel to be there only for beauty. It had to be the same pixel that carried information and carried beauty. And that's a sort of little more challenging, but it's also great fun to try to do it. The Arab states, you think Arab states are similar. Look how different they are. You know, income varies, health varies from Yemen to United Arab Emirates, from Sana to Dubai, 1 hour's flight, 2 ends of the world. And then you can split all the countries like this, you know. This is one sort of one of the ideas we had. And we then also went on and we had to split inside each country. And when this is a sort of a linear presentation, a little like PowerPoint, but where you have the interactive component within each graph here. So if I split Brazil here, I get the 20% richest people of Brazil there, I get the 20% poorest there. I can split Vietnam, the difference are not so big, and I split Namibia. You know, Namibia, the Kalahari Desert, you have the diamond mine there, and you have the Kalahari Desert people living there. You have the whole world in one little African countries. Now, this animation was really the key of this, because you have people follow you if you animate from one picture to the next. And basically, we just use computer game principles. Now, how does a 60-year-old professor managed to operate child labor for so long time? I think it was because we played a lot of computer games, and I always thought that was fun with my kids. And we had that from the beginning. Now, coming to this point, our main problem became that the statistical data was not freely available in the world. And we got furious about that, because it's not like this problem with Pirate Bay, you know, the challenge that it's privately developed films and music, which we discuss if we should share on the internet. Statistic is paid by the taxpayers, for God's sake. And then it's compiled by people who have their salaries from the taxpayers. And that material should be allowed free on the net for innovators like yourself to add value and make it useful in many different forms. The statistical agencies should be honored, and they should have their web page like the watermark on the banknote. But what we eventually did now is that we found out that we sold the software to Google, and my son, his wife, and the group of developers from Sweden moved over to Google to try to make statistics freely available on the web, because that's what Google committed to try to do. I got a nice mail from Bill Gates, and he invited me for a talk and asked, why didn't you sell it to me? I want it in Excel, these bubbles. And I said, we didn't want a product, we wanted a service. And people in the open source community said, why didn't you give it open source? Because if it was open source, people would have done consultancy to statistical agency, which would have put it on their web page to continue to hide the access to the data. So liberating data, providing service was our main aim. Now, where we are now is here, you know, and this is Gapminder's web page. Because Google bought the software, the source code from the foundation. The foundation, we are still operating, kicking very much alive here with the new staff of 8 persons in Stockholm. And we use the technology, put data in and tell stories. And here we have the interactive graph, and here we have the videos. And our last videos you can lose, this is on HIV, and we had one very successful on swine flu and tuberculosis, which stopped the media hype on this. Because we found that videos with animation hit a much wider audience. In fact, there are not so many who lean forward and click interactively and so on. Those are the persons who then, in their turn, will produce videos and communicate to different places. So if you click on Explore the World, Gapminder World, you will get this graph here. And I go to full screen here. And you have the world in 1810. And United Kingdom was the healthiest country of the world. It's life expectancy here. It's income per person here. They had 41 years in life expectancy. And then this is what happened. We have actually composed this data set from various sources so that we can show world history you know, over the last 200 years in less than half a minute. And you can see that today, after independence, almost all countries in the world are better than Britain was 200 years ago. But the difference from Congo down here up to Japan there is very wide. So this is our intention, is that we would be one site which would use technology. The Trendaliser software, we have the free right to use it from a license from Google, and we have the right to sub-license it to others which want to use it for uploading free data. And what is Google doing? You asked me what Google is doing. Well, even if I knew, I couldn't tell, but I can tell you what Google have done. And this is what Google launched very recently. It's unemployment rate in United States. They made a one box for public data. On the search, if you run unemployment rate here, you will get this up. And you click here, and then you get a graph. A simple line graph, not the bubbles yet. Because when you search for one indicator only. But it's quite nice graphic, and you can choose it. And if you want to compare to California, you see that unemployment rate is worse in California. And then you can open California, you get all the counties, and you go to Alpine County, and you get this fantastic pattern of unemployment, and you realize that it's a ski resort. So you have the annual variation of unemployment, which is very big. And then you very easily can move back on this. Now, it now depends on whether really all the providers of free data will choose to upload it. The problem in this sector is that we don't have the unified format in which the providers of this great data of public statistic can have one interface, so like innovators like yourself can compete now and try to provide something which is even better than Google. The principle for us, the principle for Google is that that interface should be free for the whole world. So I wish you good luck. Take up new ideas and make this valuable public statistic available. Thank you. No. Yeah. Oh, now I hear you.
Paul, can we take questions, or is that? We can try. Okay.
Questions? Okay. Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay, good. Are there any questions for Hans while we've got him? And we're running a little bit late, but we do have time for a question. If yep, great. Justin?
Just thinking about data.gov in the States. Is it better to aggregate the data from the public sector in one place, or for the different organs of the state to be able to expose their data individually?
Right. So Hans, the question was, I think if I remember correctly, should governments be trying to aggregate data across multiple sources into, say, a single portal like data.gov, or would you recommend that just every organization makes it available via their own individual websites or whatever through API?
Yeah, I mean, what we need is a unified format, so not everyone have to spend a lot of time converting the data to that unified format. And there is one attempt from the data side, which is called SDMX, and it's the national banks that started that. You really see the need for all the people to be able to what happened in the bank sector, you know, and then perhaps government would. I think it would promote innovation if government took all the public statistic from labor statistic, you know, financial statistic, health statistic, education, and made it available in one unified block, a cube, downloadable every Friday afternoon with their watermark, you know, and then innovator can move it on and add value to it. And the countries that will initiate that will spearhead their own software industry to innovate. This is what I think. And then, you know, companies that Bloomberg and Thomson will have to move on and earn their money on analysis rather than making data available. So I think this can be more efficient. I used to compare it to the sidewalks and the pavements in the city. They are tax funded and you can walk on them. And then you have businesses like restaurants adapted to the sidewalk, and the sidewalk is on the same level. That's what we need with the statistic. We have to cut that transaction cost. Then we can have some very fantastic things happening. But there is a sort of database hugging disorder in statistical agencies. And there are two reasons for that. First, that people don't appreciate how much professional skill it takes to gather and compile and document statistics. And the second is how haphazardly these agencies get their budgets. So the way we use the data, we have to give credits and recognition back to those who produce it. And we have to have that relationship working. That's why we changed our mission statement at Gapminder to be that we unveil the beauty of statistics. The value and the beauty is already there, and the production of a statistic is something that government agents should continue to do. But the private sector, you know, and philanthropy and civil society can find much more innovative way of communicating and using it than the government agency can.
Great. Hans, I think we're going to have to close that. I know you can't see me, but we can see you. And just to let you know, the presentation worked brilliantly. I think we all agree. Hopefully you heard the applause. So thank you very much for the time and the effort. And will you thank Daniel for us for all the work he did in working with our folks to make it. There you are.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Hans. Cheers.